I have been told not to use a certain word, but Chris, just for you, stay humble. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. As always, my name is Rory, and I am joined by my very good friends, Adam and Andrea. Adam, I'm going to start with you. How are you doing, man? Busy day for the chair boys?
As it's strange trying to be humble from my beginnings anyway, but no, a surreal kind of experience. We are now on our 10th signing of the January transfer window. I think I'm more used to signing 10 in the summer, Rory, rather than in a January transfer window. But this shows you how different the setup in Wickham is these days. But more importantly, how are things in Milan? You seem to be a bit more chippier than your usual self, that's for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, last night bloody helped. Today, honestly, feel like I've been walking on a cloud. Apart from my hangover, thankfully, I've just the whole time just been like, oh, there's colour in the sky. Everything, the birds are singing is fantastic. We battered City 5-1. I cannot believe it. So, yeah, I'm absolutely fantastic. But, Andrea, how are you doing, man?
Very good, yeah. Enjoyed the games yesterday as well, actually. It's like you, to be fair. I think the only thing left for this Arsenal City beef has to be a diss track. Someone's got to drop a diss track or something, just to. It's getting to that stage now. It's got to be so. But yeah, looking forward to talking about that.
Nice. My money's definitely on Declan Rice. Definitely on Declan Rice for the rap track. I can see that all day. There's a comedian, Jacob Hawley, who's an Arsenal fan, and he described Declan Rice as he talks like an undercover police officer, and I just cannot not hear it anymore. It is so accurate. It's incredible. But yeah, lots to talk about this weekend, of course. But the big transfer news, huge transfer news, Adam, rocked Turkey as Ryan Kent decided to move to Fenerbahce. But do you want to tell us the clinching detail that convinced him to join Mourinho's project?
Well, I don't know if it's a loose translation in Google Translate, but apparently the reason is that the turning point was that the ability to have a crocodile in your house was the turning point for Ryan Kent to sign for Papapolis, I think is how you say it. So, yeah, I've never seen that as a reason. I don't see these rumours about him not staying at Rangers for that particular reason, but maybe that's why he decided to go to sunnier climates, Rory. Maybe that's the reason.
Maybe he's going to snap into tackles a bit more. Who knows? But yeah, absolutely. I saw that and absolutely love that. I love that Mourinho will just say anything to convince people to join him. Whatever. Yeah, you can do that. Don't worry. No, we'll sort that. Yeah. Do not worry about it. Sign there. So good, great to see that. But obviously, this weekend we are going to start off talking about Arsenal 5, Manchester City 1. Just need to say it out loud a few more times. We'll be talking about Herzl's nightmare and the Tricky Trees returning to their incredible form. 7-0 win for them. Big questions everywhere with that one. And we will be talking about the Moisaya and the Resurrection taking over at Everton. It turns out they can score goals if you just try. Who knew? So, guys, we're going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss all the Premier League action. We'll see you then. And we are back. Welcome back. It's time to discuss Arsenal 5, Man City 1. Before I go wild and talk about Arsenal, I want to have a little bit of a balance on this show. I try my best. I'm going to go to Adam first. Let's talk about the game as a whole. I think the first half was really interesting because Arsenal started really, really well, came flying out the blocks, but then did what we always do and decided to sit back a little bit and invited City on. I feel like City, towards the end of the first half, were probably the better team and deserved to have an equaliser, if not at least an equaliser over the balance of the first half, right?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, they had their moments. I felt whilst they didn't necessarily have full possession of the ball at times, they did seem like they were waiting for that opportunity. They were trying to wait for their moment, essentially. But I think that's a lot of credit to Arsenal as well in terms of they almost kind of mimicked the game that they had at the Etihad where they ensured that there was people behind the ball. I think they realised that that was the way to frustrate Man City. And to a point, it kind of did its job. They did enough up until Haaland scores that equaliser. But yeah, I think on the balance of the first half, you wouldn't have begrudged it being a draw at that point in the game. But that said, I did feel Arsenal should have possibly have led by more by that point. Kai Havertz's chance springs to mind where I was putting it on the group. I said, will they come to regret that?
Yeah.
And funnily enough, obviously, it didn't happen to be the case. But I think any other game, you're kind of maybe second questioning whether Kai Havertz, his clinical aspect to his game, he's not necessarily where it should be for Arsenal at this point in the season. And you're just wondering, is this the missed opportunity? But thankfully for Arsenal, they came out in the second half, especially after Haaland scored, and completely overawed Man City. I don't know what happened to them. There was a series of errors, which we'll go into, but certainly from a point of view, I've never seen them so fragile in terms of the way they crumbled in that game. Normally when they get a goal back, then they kind of redeem and try and control the possession. But you just felt like there was some sort of reluctance within the squad, and even from a Pep Guardiola point of view, I wonder if he got his substitutions right. I think at the wrong moments he brought them on and didn't really play too much. I felt there was some really disappointing performances across the pitch. But I know equally at the same time, Man City are saying that, they're having to address the balance of the squad at the moment because of certain injuries. This was Johnny Stones' second appearance since coming back from injury. So again, potentially there's some rawness there as well. But Mateus Nunes, for example, at right back, he's lost. He's not a right back, and it was clearly told in this match. So I think on the balance of this game as it turned out in that first half, yes, we could say that a draw was deserving, but actually over the kind of full 90 minutes, Arsenal deserved the victory.
Yeah, I think because Raya made two big saves towards the end of the first half as well. Like what I love about Raya is even when he's not in games, he can concentrate, unlike Aaron Ramsdale, and he does still come in and make these big saves, huge moments for him. But let's talk about City a little bit before we go into Arsenal. Andrea, I want to talk to you. The defence is the main issue right now. I think obviously Akanji makes that horrendous mistake, but the whole passive play is pretty lackadaisical from City. As Adam said, Nunes isn't a right back. I'm not sure why he's being played at right back. But is it because we've seen it over a few matches now with City, like when they equalised against us, I thought, they're going to do what they did against Chelsea. They'll get a second and they're going to beat us because I'm an eternal pessimist. But what we've actually seen in a lot of games is against PSG, against Bournemouth, right? No, Brentford, they dropped a 2-goal lead as well. We've seen that once they concede one goal, they do tend to collapse. And why do you think this is happening at City now? Is it just Pep has lost the source? It's just not going the same, or is it a personnel issue? Is it it just seemed so inevitable once Arsenal got the second, at least anyway?
I think it's a bit boring to keep saying it comes back to Rodri, but I really feel like it does. Like they don't really have the cover that they should have had for Rodri with the injury, and they still haven't really signed anyone to replace him. I heard about Nico Gonzalez from Porto potentially, but that's key. When you've got Kovacic and Bernardo Silva in front of the four at defence, there's no cover there, and you're going to be exploited. And out of all the teams in the league, Liverpool and Arsenal are probably the ones where you don't want them to have that ball in that final third in those dangerous areas, in those pockets. Odegaard in those pockets was all over them. And I think it shows how clear it is when you look at Declan Rice and his great performance in that game. Exactly what Man City are missing. Someone in that midfield to boss it, to pass it, to, that's what they're missing, that lack of dynamism, that kind of hunger in that midfield to win the ball back. Kovacic and Bernardo Silva, great players on the eye, but they're not that type of player that's going to get the ball and win the games for you, step the mark and control the midfield. So I think it comes from that really. But I do have to think, I agree as well, defence. Nunes right back is concerning. And even Gvardiol, he looks a shadow of himself at the start of the season as well. I still don't, he's not really up to the level either. But again, it's the constant change and inconsistency. But I just think it's got to the point where City have just found too many excuses, and it's just mentally, I feel like it's just got over them. And I feel like I can't imagine how we see Guardiola in the interviews having meltdowns, and I just can't imagine how he must be like that in the change room as well. And they're probably thinking, this guy has always been so authoritative, so knowledgeable, so this is always working. But because it's not working, I think it definitely must go down to the players as well in terms of their mental state in the team. Like, right, even Guardiola doesn't know what we're doing. If he doesn't know what we're doing, what do we know? You know, so I think there's a lot of question marks. Their new signings as well are decent, but again, they need time to gel. They're not going to come in and make an instant impact, and that's another thing that yes, they spent money, but that's not the answer. You know, we've seen it with Chelsea; they spend a lot of money. It's not a quick fix, so it's going to take a bit of time. But certainly, the one position that they missed, they haven't replaced, and these type of results just feel like they're going to happen again, just because they haven't replaced that key issue in the midfield.
No, I think I felt bad for Kovacic at times, honestly, because I feel like he was a one-man midfield. Because I think Bernardo Silva's a fantastic player, but as a deep-lying midfielder, he's just not that guy, and he hasn't got the physical, like, he's not able to physically dominate. And I think, like, Rice, Partey, and Erdegaard were like, they must have been licking their lips when they were coming onto the pitch. Like, this is going to be a great day in the office. Like, I feel like the midfield was just, it was a non-contest. And I think players like Foden doesn't get anywhere near enough stick as he should for some of these performances, because he gave away the ball 3 times in, I think, a minute at one point during the game. Like, it was horrendous, his passing. And I think we've just seen the mentality drop off of these stupid, lazy passes, these things that they wouldn't have done a year ago, where it's just, oh, I don't want the ball, you take it, not thinking, whatever it is, rushing. And just like, he passes the ball directly to Thomas Partey. Basically, he assists him for the second goal. Like, and I just think, mentally, there's just obviously a huge drop off. And the second that second goal went in, I was surprised by how quickly they collapsed. But I was also surprised. But finally, Arsenal showed a bit of cutthroat. Let's try and embarrass someone. Let's make a statement. Let's not just get a second and try and sit off. Let's make a statement. Let's get a third, a fourth, and a fifth, and let's really send a message. And I think I could talk about all 11 players, but I'm going to try my hardest not to. I have to talk about Gabriel. I think Saliba gets all the praise. I think Gabriel is like top 3 centre-backs in the world at the moment, if not top 2. The guy is absolutely unbelievable. Every game, he just physically dominates whoever he's up against. He blocks, he tackles. He's just everything you want in a centre-back. I think he was incredible. The fact he spent the entire time winding up Haaland, and back since the Etihad game, he said, I'll see you in the Emirates, and he fully backed it up. And I love that we've got a player who's confident enough to do that and also able to do it. But there's 2 players, Adam, that I want to talk about more than anything, and it's the 2 teenagers. Let's start with Lewis-Skelly, because I think he went on the preseason tour to America, and everyone was like, oh, him and Nwaneri are going to be part of the team this year. They're going to be part of the squad. We'll be introduced to them. I don't think anyone expected them to become such key players so quickly. Miles Lewis-Skelly, I've not been this excited about a young player since Cesc Fabregas, since Ashley Cole. Like, that level of talent we're talking, I think. Like, just how outstanding was he yesterday? And he has been since he came into the league, but yesterday I think he really announced himself.
He did, and I think what's outstanding is that's not his natural position. That's not his position that he's been brought in to do. He's not a left back. He's just someone that's filling into the void. And, you know, we speculated offline, like, what happens now going forward when everyone is fit? Does he get now pushed into that Partey role? Does he get to be a midfielder? And I think, do you know what? It's not a bad grounding in terms of being a left back, showing his worth across the pitch. I think, you know, we saw the development of Declan Rice from doing something very similar where he had to drop into centre back, playing a defensive midfield role, and he's now developed his game onwards. And I think you're seeing that transition with Miles Lewis-Skelly, but to a much more exciting level, I would say. I think everyone's got to be grounded. Look, the first season is doing really well, fantastically overachieving in terms of the levels. And I hope he gets the time to, you know, I suppose just take a breather, essentially, at some point. He will need it at some point, and he will have a patch in his career now going forward where maybe people will kind of say that was the expectation, why you're not living up to those kind of levels now. But yeah, it's really exciting. It is so exciting to see how well he's doing. And Nwaneri, we knew from last season, we knew what a potential talent he'd be. And again, you can see there's a lot more confidence about him. He seems like, personally, Rory, I don't know if you feel the same because you're a bit more closer to the Arsenal detail. He feels like he's a bit more bulked up, a bit more strong on the ball, less likely to be pushed over. And I appreciate when he came into the squad, he was only 15. So he's a year older. So he's definitely going to grow out of that as well. So you can see physically he seems to be a lot more adapted to the Premier League standings. But yeah, what a superb performance. That goal, well taken, incredible finish. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Just to have that kind of nerve to kind of have that kind of, I suppose it was just the fluidity. That's what I was so impressed by. You know, he went past those Man City players like they were just building blocks. You know, didn't see them in the motion, and the way it was taken, it was just poetry in motion, Rory. I know this is romantic words, but it genuinely was. When I'm seeing it from a neutral point of view, it was a brilliant goal, and it's one that I showed to my little boy, and he was just like in awe of how he scored that goal. So, yeah, a lot of hope for the future, definitely, Rory.
I think it's like really exciting to see Hale End like really producing like not only players that are still at the club, but like, you know, look at Fulham, they're all Hale End players, right? Or like, you know, you've got Saka, you've got now Lewis-Skelly, and you've got Nwaneri. This Max Dowman, who's 15, and they're desperately trying to get into the squad, is another one that's going to be coming soon. Like, it's just really exciting to see these homegrown players absolutely smashing it. I think the Nwaneri goal in particular is great because it's like, I think it was a 36 pass move where every single Arsenal outfield player touched the ball before he, at 17 years old, did his signature finish, which is now a signature goal from him. Like that is, he scored that goal 5 times for Arsenal already. Now John Duran has left the league. He's got the best goals per minute ratio in the Premier League at 17. He's now on 7 goals for a Premier League team. By this age, the only other 2 players to have done it are Wayne Rooney and Michael Owen. Like, he is in big company at the moment with the numbers and the performances he's putting in. But I think we've known how excited to be about him, and I am excited about him. Miles Lewis-Skelly, I did not expect to be this excited by and this impressed by so instantly. Like, Andrea, with an England cap on, we've been worried about left backs. I know he's not a left back, but Tommy Tuchel has to be looking at him for left back, right?
100%. It's a no-brainer. Like you've all said, like he's contributing in the final third. Everything, like his whole gameplay is unreal. And again, he's not playing in his natural position. So imagine in his natural position what he could do as well. So yeah, definitely he's got to be considered.
Yeah, I'm excited to see next year if he comes into the midfield and Calafiori kind of holds down the left back spot a little bit more. That's kind of what I expect to see. But the last player I wanted to talk about, because we haven't really talked about him, is Declan Rice. He played as the number 8, the left 8, which is the position I think I want him in now. I think that is where we get the best of him. He's fantastic in a 6. But I like having him being able to contribute in all areas of the pitch. We saw for his pass for the Nwaneri goal just how good his passing range is. He can run forever, like he never stops sprinting. And I just think this was another game where, like you said, I think you kind of alluded to it, Adam, like if he's the player that City are missing in their midfield, right? And he just showed that in the performance, just how complete a player he is.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the fact that there was moments where he was getting frustrated that he wasn't being fed the ball as well at times. You know, he was getting visibly frustrated because he was doing a lot of that running from box to box. But again, it shows his adaptability, you know, the fact that he can go into these positions and fit in seamlessly, but also kind of provide that kind of measured approach no matter what position he's playing, but also ensure that the temperament is right. And I think that's another part of his game that he's getting so much more mature at as well, because I think, you know, there was the incident earlier in the season where he gets sent off. You know, from that moment onwards, he's not making that same mistake now.
Yeah.
And in this particular match, you know, it feels like for the big occasions, he's growing into them so much more than he ever did previously. It just feels like now he feels that this is the moment where he goes on to push on for what he sees in his eyes, potentially like winning more trophies in his career now. And I feel that's the moment now that he's feeling that, you know, with these performances now, it needs the rest of the squad to buy into that philosophy. And yeah, it is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And the way that he's carried this Arsenal side during the last few matches as well, I think testament to the character that he is.
No, absolutely, because he was quite open about the fact that he started the season super slowly. He was not his best. He was knackered. He's been open about it, and he said like only now in the last couple of weeks he feels like he's starting to get back to full fitness and back to full form. He was fantastic. I was delighted that Kai Havertz finally got the goal after that miss because I was worried that was going to sit on his mind a little bit. He obviously scores the much more difficult chance than the one he misses, but that's like the story behind all of this is, of course, we've got our rivalries back. We've got proper Premier League rivalries again. We've got Needle. We've got players that don't like each other, managers that don't like each other. Gary Neville having the gall to say he didn't like Gabriel screaming in Haaland's face after all the things Neville did in his career, I found particularly ironic. But it's good to see these kind of pantomime villains again and a bit of rivalry. I feel like Liverpool and City were always so friendly to each other the whole time. Like, Adam, it's nice to see teams that don't like each other, right?
Genuinely, yeah. I think we've missed this in the Premier League kind of last decade or so. Like, even I suppose the kind of last time that I can remember this kind of maybe shithousery was with Chelsea under Mourinho, this kind of attitude aspect, us against the world mentality. And, there was drama every time on the sidelines with Mourinho if it wasn't on the pitch. So for me, it's a welcome kind of addition when you look at the grand scheme of things. I still feel there's a bit of a softer underlayer to this, though. It's not necessarily that they hate each other, but they understand and appreciate, I suppose, the intensity of these games. You can see that there is a lot more kind of understanding, but also I think it's probably built on from Haaland's comments earlier in the season, to stay humble. And clearly he still remains humble after applauding the Man City fans pointing to his little sleeve that he's no longer going to have at the end of the season. So it doesn't really matter.
I love it. Honestly, absolutely. Even when Haaland made the comments at the Etihad, obviously I was like, my initial reaction was like, oh, fuck off, you prick. Blah, blah, blah. But it's all absolutely fair. It's all funny. It all gets us more invested. It's more just people who want to win and enjoy beating someone. And I think that, Andrea, my highlight of the match was Gabriel pulling on Haaland's shorts and asking him to pick up his boot for him. Like, it's difficult to recover from that if you're Erling Haaland, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's absolutely... he can't believe that when he says stay humble, that it would turn on its head, like 360 everything. Like, it's crazy how it's turned. But on that, though, I just wanted to add that, I don't know if it was said before, but I've got to say the attitude of Arsenal, the way that they've actually like hunger for the game, I've been quite impressed with. Because I think over the years for Arsenal, there's always been the question that they haven't had that kind of like dirty side to them, that kind of like, old school mentality kind of thing in terms of like trying to get in people's heads. And that when they can do that to their game, it just gives them, it does help you. It does give you an elevate you. And I think, again, it got into City's head. It gets into Haaland's head. And in the end, Haaland really had a poor performance. He should have done more. So this is I think that's a good sign. And again,
100%.
This is a no-brainer.
Kind of,
like, these type of things are all said, just as important to help
contributing in the final
challenge
third, everything.
Titles
Like, his whole gameplay is unreal.
I think that's, for me, that's great to see, because I think that's something that Arsenal lacked over the years. They've been
imagining his natural
fragile
position, what
and
he
easy
could
to
do as
beat
well.
at times,
So,
because they haven't had that mentality to, but now you're starting to see that they have that in them. And the young players are showing it. Like even Lewis-Skelly doing a celebration, so they're all on it now. They're all. It's going to start with the under nines.
The size
now.
of the size of the balls on that lad is insane. When he did the Erling Haaland celebration, I turned into a little kid. I was like, "Oh my god, he's doing his celebration!" Like, it was just crazy. But I think, look, on that note, and this will be my final point on this game. For years, everyone told us how great we were. Oh, you play lovely football. Yeah, we love Arsenal, but we were shit. We were crap. And everyone was complimenting how good we were. We'd get rolled 5-0 away to Chelsea and be like, oh yeah, Arsenal play football the right way. I'm sick of it. I don't want to be nice anymore. I want to piss people off and I want to win things. And people get annoyed now about us. Good. Absolutely good. Like, I hope we piss you off, because it means we're doing something right. And I love that we've got players that are fully willing to just go to war now. Like, and they really, I could not be happier with the performance yesterday. Everything perfect, 10 out of 10, no notes. But Adam, in the context of the league, it was pretty big for Arsenal to get that done. Obviously, Liverpool comfortably getting past Bournemouth in a game that I'd kind of penciled down for Liverpool to drop points. It was just huge for Arsenal to do it and do it in that way, right?
Yeah, it was massive in the context of things. I mean, everyone's kind of alluding to the upcoming match where Liverpool have got a game in hand against Everton and expecting Liverpool to easily win that. But I don't think it's going to be as seamless given the form of Everton and the fact that David Moyes knows what to do in these fixtures as well. So he knows the importance of that particular fixture, especially as this is the last year at Goodison as well. So I think don't take that for granted. I think that this will spice up the title race, certainly. I'm still expecting Liverpool to win it, but what I would say is it definitely makes it closer than I think a month or month and a half ago, where we all speculated that Liverpool would run away with at least 7 points clear, if not more. So yeah, I think, look, we've been kind of speculating that Liverpool will have a difficult run. Possibly we're experiencing it now. Let's see what happens now and whether they can keep their kind of cool temperaments during this period, because I think this is a really tough period. And obviously we've got to remember Liverpool also got the kind of semi-final of the League Cup coming up as well against Spurs. Everyone's expecting Liverpool to potentially win that, and they need to win it to get themselves back into the tie. So yeah, let's see. But certainly puts Arsenal in a position where they now know that they cannot afford to slip up. They need to at least try and at least equal Liverpool's results going forward.
No, absolutely. I think, look, is it my perfect situation to be in? No. But all I can say is I hope we make them earn it. If they're going to win it, and I think they probably will, I hope we make them work for it and it goes to the last game of the season, because that's the best we can hope for now. And Liverpool's last 5 fixtures are very, very difficult. That's what I'm holding on to at the moment. But we're going to make them fight for it. We're going to make them work for it. And I will bloody take that. But we're going to leave that one there, I think, because enough. I could go on forever. And let's talk about the next game. This was lovely afternoon watching. I didn't really expect this. I thought it would be an interesting game. I didn't think it would go this way. Nottingham Forest 7, Brighton 0. As Nottingham Forest respond fantastically to getting slapped by Bournemouth. Andrea, we're going to talk about Forest first before we kind of go two-footed in on Herzler and Brighton. But that is a hell of a way to respond to what could have been a pretty damaging loss.
Absolutely. I think they were handed a big favour though, because I felt like it was so easy for them in that game. That first half an hour, it was almost like Brighton was standing still and then Forest was just like walking around them. Like it was that bad. And every time Forest had an attack, you thought it was a goal. So I think to that extent, they were a little fortunate, but I've got to say the attitude was right. They were first minute right on it. And credit to them, they've got to obviously beat the team in front of them, and they did it convincingly. And again, Brighton are still a decent side, so they've done a really good job. But I was just impressed how confident they were in that first half an hour in particular. It just swept them away, and the game was done in half an hour, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was so ruthless. And when the City ground gets that atmosphere going, it's just a hell of a place to play. And you could see the Bournemouth players were just completely collapsing. Adam, Alanga, again with 3 assists, again just putting it on a plate for Wood every single time. The partnership that they've got going at the moment, every week we ask, why the hell did United let Alanga go? And he just continues to impress. Outstanding performance from him, and the understanding with Wood is incredible, right?
Yeah, certainly. I think we've got to give credit to Nuno Espirito Santo, though, as well, because obviously Callum Hudson-Odoi is normally in the front three alongside them two. And obviously he was missing due to injury, and he changed it in terms of just playing them two up top with Morgan Gibbs-White behind them. It was very inspired, and he just threatened every time. You know, his pace is frightening. I still recall, Roy, and I will hold my hands up, I didn't see Alanga being this good. I did call this out as being maybe a dud signing at the time. Yes. Yeah. And how have I got egg on my face for that? But I think everyone was of that opinion, you know, when Nottingham Forest was signing players, you know, spending these kind of vast amounts of money. There was no signs of this being a squad in the same sense that Santo has been able to kind of forge this understanding and, you know, getting the best out of these players. You know, you've got players like Anderson that was brought in as a forward, now playing as a kind of midfielder. And, you know, being a tackling midfielder that can just go from box to box, So I think a lot of credit has to go towards how Nuno Espirito Santo has managed to forge this kind of relationships within the squad and get the harmony in terms of the way they play. And, this, when you consider also that loss to Bournemouth last week, it would have been very easy for them to have collapsed in this match and maybe go into their shell, maybe be a bit more kind of defensive and pragmatic in terms of style. But they really did, take it to Brighton. And obviously we will kind of go into details about Brighton, but Brighton made it easy for them. And that was, I think, the reason why Alanga and the likes of Wood really took advantage of that. Yeah. They were able to just bully them, essentially.
Yeah. Well, I think just before we go on to Brighton, because we are going to now, I was delighted to see Danilo back. It's one of his first appearances, if not his first appearance post-injury. He was so key for them in their midfield before that injury. I kind of forgot about him and then saw him and was like, oh crap, they're adding him to this team as well. Like, he was outstanding for them when he first joined. Murillo going off with an injury is a bit of a concern. Hopefully that's not a long-term thing. I think it was just a muscular thing, but hopefully that's not too serious. But yeah, just lots of good times in Nottingham at the moment and 7 bloody goals. It was embarrassing. But let's talk about Brighton and the team. We'll talk about the players' performances, but I think that team was sent out on a suicide mission. So Hertzler basically decides to play a 4-1-4-1. Hinchelwood, who was lucky not to see red as well, by the way, with one of his tackles, really lucky to not get sent off, was the sole midfielder, basically. The other midfielders in name were João Pedro and Ruta, who are both strikers. And then you have Minte and Matoma and Welbeck. So basically got 5 strikers on the pitch, 1 midfielder and 4 defenders against the best transitional team in the league. Like, the team that are the best at counterattacks, it's Nottingham Forest. Like, Andrea Hertzler, I feel like, now I don't like the bloke, but I feel like he's a bit of like a galaxy brain, kind of overthinks things like Pep at times, or like Pep used to. Like, he got this horrendously wrong, right?
Yeah, I think he did overthink it. The only thing I could think of that he played that style was just the fact that Forest play a free back and he was thinking he could overpower them in that final third with the attacking flair in behind Danny Welbeck. But again, you noticed in that game, as soon as they lost the ball, they were so exposed. Like you said, in midfield, one person there. Yeah, you've got all those attacking players. That midfield, you've got Gibbs White as well, who had a great game as well. He's a very influential player in that midfield. You can't give these type of players space, and not even an inch, and they punish you. Gibbs White was unbelievable in that first 20 in particular. So, again, I just think he got it completely wrong. But on top of that, it was just the way it was structured as well. It seemed quite like we'll catch them on the counter maybe, or we'll expose them in a certain moments of games. But it just wasn't a plan where it was like, right, this is a game we can dominate or give them a game. It was just more like, you know what, if we get some chances, we can score some goals, maybe we can outscore them. That's what it kind of felt like, rather than we're going to dominate this game and take it to them. And I think that's obviously ultimately what happened. They couldn't do that, and they had no plan B, and ultimately Forest just enjoyed themselves. Like I said, they walked that game. I haven't seen a Premier League game in a long time where a team has literally walked around them. Like, it felt like they were a League 2, League 1 team, and no disrespect to a League 1, League 2 team, because there are some decent sides there. Yeah. So, so I just think that's quite at that level, to be beaten that badly is very concerning for a manager. So I think that's got to be questioned, definitely.
And Adam, that's now 2 wins in 12 for Brighton. So they've beaten Ipswich and they've beaten Manchester United, neither of which are particular achievements in the league this year. Not sorry. But this is also like, there's a bit of noise around Brighton now that they're not happy with the manager. They're not happy with how he carries himself, how he kind of... And I think he comes across as a massive bell end in press conferences and like really he's not very amiable or amicable, and that's not his job. But there's quite a lot of discontent around Brighton now. Do you think it's fair?
I think so. There is, you can see for a while now, there's been a bit of discontent with the Brighton fan base and the team. Like, beforehand, there seemed to be a camaraderie and understanding, and they were playing, and it felt like there was a togetherness. But also, I think what the way that Hurtzler's coming across can be misconstrued, but there is an air of arrogance about him that, unfortunately, I felt for a while there's been a lot of excuses around, when the team hasn't performed well, he's kind of blamed it on the team not working hard enough. And when there was question marks about what did you do at half time, he just said, you're not perfecting our game plan, you've got to work harder. And for me, from an outsider point of view, maybe I'm a bit naive, but there is times where that is true. But when you get that theme quite consistently, there seems to be something deep lying in that. That it feels like it's got to be my way or the highway, essentially. And I feel like at the moment it's dismantling what was there as a good foundation at Brighton. And the way that also was kind of after this game, the fact that he walked straight down the tunnel, not acknowledging the fan base that had travelled all the way up there. There is signs already that maybe this project hasn't worked out for all parties. Potentially, this is a person that has got good understanding, deep thinking, maybe ambitious with his style of football. And maybe this is a level that he's having to adapt and learn very quickly. But I don't know if that's actually going to come out in the next season or two. So it'll be interesting to see how Tony Bloom, the owner, reacts to these kind of setbacks right now. And I appreciate, look, potentially Brighton are probably ahead of their trajectory. But as we kind of spoke offline, there's a lot of players that were brought in as part of the project that they would have naturally kind of developed over the course of a number of seasons, but they sold them on quite quickly. And I do wonder right now if the philosophy is working as it should be. So yeah, testing times for Brighton, something that they've not been used to for a while. And also, Rory, maybe there's a bit of arrogance with Brighton fan base. Maybe they've just been so used to, success over the last few seasons that actually the first sign of them struggling, is there maybe some reset required with their fan base? I know they got really rattled by the celebrations by Ndai, and yeah, I get it.
There was a complete
at the same
head loss.
time.
Brighton
someone called Jamie
completely
Vardy
lost their
that
head
does it
losing to
regularly.
Everton. Yeah, they
Exactly.
completely lost their head. Yeah, that was quite funny to see, to be fair. But I think it's interesting with Brighton because, yeah, there's some interesting business. The Valentin Barco deal is really weird. Like, he's FM wonder kid. Everyone in the world was after him. They signed him and now they've sold him straight away. Adingra has gone out to Sunderland on loan, right? And Ciso has now been sent to Ipswich. Like, maybe they've just hoovered up too much talent and they don't know what to do with it all now and they need to slow down or they need to... Because there's no doubt in their recruitment, right? Their recruitment is fantastic. Yeah. They know how to find players. Maybe they just need to slow down and not buy all of the wonder kids and be a bit more selective. I don't know, but there's obviously needs to be some decisions made. I think it may be super simplistic as well. Maybe I'm just being... But is there a thing of, like, if your manager is younger than some of your players, there's an issue there? Like... that if you're asking like maybe he's asking too much of the team when we talk about you're not working hard enough, you're not implementing my system. Maybe he's asking too much. Maybe he's making decisions like this team selection that even we can see is stupid. Yeah. If you're doing things like that and you're 2 years younger than your captain or whatever it is, maybe you don't have that credit for them to be like, oh, he's been in the game longer than me. He knows what he's doing. It's like, who the hell is this guy? And why is he making me do this? Like, I don't know if it's oversimplistic, maybe, but I think there might be something there of like when you're asking these ridiculous things that you don't get enough rope to hang yourself with. So it's kind of, there could be interesting dynamics there. I personally think he'll be gone by the end of the season. I think they'll just, at least at the end of the season, they'll agree to go their different ways. I don't think it's gone particularly well. And obviously, once the fans don't really like you either, it never really lasts that much longer. But nightmarish day for Brighton, but absolutely fantastic for Forest. They continue the march for Europe. It is not slowing down in the slightest. I'm really excited to see them in the Champions League next year. Fingers crossed they get there. Let's leave that game there for now, and we're going to go all the way down to Goodison Park. It's very good for Everton at the moment. Absolutely flying in the goals as they beat a shocking Leicester City 4-0. The game was done within half an hour for Brighton. At least they lasted half an hour. Leicester lasted about 6 minutes before this game was done. Decore Everton's all-time top goal scorer at this record. I think it only ever seems to be him scoring, and the man that we never thought it would take off at Everton, but he's still there. Andrea Beto with a goal. Can Moyes turn him into the player he was in Serie A?
Yeah, potentially. He's always got the best out of strikers. We saw that with Antonio at West Ham. He's always done well with certain strikers of that kind of like caliber. So yeah, maybe it's because you've been linking him to every team and he just had enough and was like, I'm going to prove myself at Everton. And he just said, I'll show you, Rory. And then he's done that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what's happened.
Well, you're welcome, Everton fans. You're welcome. But he does look like a transformed player. He looks like his confidence is back. He's physical. He's fast. It's the player we saw at Udinese, right?
No, 100%, yeah. And I think it's a crucial period for Everton to kind of get back up the table. So someone like him stepping up is going to be a real help. And like I said, in a Moyes system, Beto will suit it just because of the kind of systematic play they have, kind of rigid approach, but also catering to the number 9, getting balls in the box. So he's going to have opportunities to score goals, and we've seen him at Udinese what he can do. So I feel like it's got a good potential to be a real top, playing really top for Everton in the rest of the season.
No, absolutely delighted to see him doing well. Ndiaye with another goal to put the icing on top of the cake. But Adam, we need to talk about the kind of resurgence at Everton. This is it's a run of form now. Things are looking good. I think they can consider themselves safe within the Premier League now. I think they're not really going to be worrying about relegation if things continue this way, which is the thing they wanted. Sometimes football is really simple and the obvious move is the best one, and bringing David Moyes back does seem to have been the right decision for Everton. If only they'd done it 10 years ago.
Very true, very true. But yeah, I think this was a relationship that worked for both parties, essentially. Everton needed someone to stabilise the ship, but someone that knew the fundamentals of Everton. He gets it. He understands the bigger picture. He understands what it means to Evertonians, more importantly. And I think this is a relationship that suits both. You know, they know what they're getting, but ultimately Evertonians also believe in David Moyes, which I think Moyes has been missing. You know, he's been missing for a fan base that gets him and understands what he's trying to achieve. And like I say, this really does work out for both parties. Obviously, Everton have been in a very precarious kind of position over that kind of, I think I want to say it's almost been a decade since Moyes was last there. I don't know if that's possibly factually incorrect, so I apologise in advance. But I mean, you can see how quickly he's been able to transform that squad. It's basically the same squad that Sean Dyche had, but he's getting them to be a lot more kind of open in terms of the play. They are shutting out teams, you know, and even the stat here that I've just managed to find, you know, they've scored 6 goals in the last 5 games. You know, that says a lot about how much they've improved in terms of the outputs. And they're seeing out games, you know, they're winning games quite handsomely. You know, there's been 1 or 2 games like the Spurs game where it was a bit a squeaky bum time in that respect. But overall, this was Dr. Leicester, right? This was the perfect kind of tonic ahead of that Liverpool game coming up. Even when I'm looking at this, Rory, stats-wise, 2.46 expected XG. I don't think I recall, even Sean Dyche having this kind of, you know, strong set of like stats. You know, there was games where they did dominate, right, but not necessarily from a point of view of looking clinical in front of games. You know, when they got a goal, they would try and shut up shop, and that was it, and you never expected anything more. Whereas now there feels like there's something to build on, and I think with Moyes at the helm, he will get the very best out of this squad, and potentially, if he's given the opportunity, he will even get some shrewd signings. He's been very good at that. And I think this is just a marriage that works.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see. And I think the turnaround in Tarkowski and James Garner, both of those assists were incredible, by the way. Like, I think the Garner one in particular, the pass was unbelievable. But getting those raised performances out of players that were struggling, like Mikalenko has gone from look, he's a player that Everton fans have never been a big fan of, but he's looking suddenly improved. And you've got Jake O'Brien at right back. I'm delighted to see him getting a consistent run of games. He's looking very good. And then Ndiaye is just that fun player who can win you a game, and Andre, he's incredibly effective, and he's someone that could turn up against any team and get you 2-3 goals. Like, the guy's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously we've started to see it recently as well. So it's exciting times again for Everton, and I think I kind of agree. As soon as Moyes got the job, it was just the right decision. It was just the right. It was a good feeling about it. Last season at Goodison as well. So yeah, these type of players hopefully step up for them, and we'll see them up the table before they leave.
Now all I need is one last favour, David Moyes. I'm asking one question. Just one result against Liverpool. That's all I need, please. That's all I need. I'm absolutely praying for that one. That's going to be a hell of a night. Last ever Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. It's going to be spicy. Excited about that one. Before we go and do our transfer window roundup, very quickly, I'll take you through the rest of the Premier League action this weekend. Spurs beat Brentford 2-0 through an own goal, and then the last one was, who got it? I can't remember. It was Sarr. Pepe Mate Sarr. He got the second goal. Fairly comfortable win for Tottenham there. Brentford very wasteful in front of goal, but the only thing that mattered there for Tottenham was that they actually won a game. Crystal Palace beat Manchester United 2-0. It's not a headline anymore, but I think Mateta is now unironically good. I think he might be unironically good now. Just an absolute machine, and I love... Like, it's weird when you see, Adam, these players go from a bit of a meme to actually a fairly efficient striker. And he's done it, obviously, in patches, but across 2 seasons now. Like, can we talk about him as a half-decent striker?
I think you can. I think, obviously, he kind of fits that narrative in terms of the level of striker that he is. But I think he also alluded to it in an interview last season that he's trying to go on to be a bit more consistent with his game. And I think given the circumstances that, Crystal Palace, the environment that he's in, that's a perfect kind of place for Mateta to be. And so he seems to thrive on, where he is in terms of being the solitary target man, but also being provided, those kind of opportunities from the likes of Eze. And obviously it was Elise last season, but now going forward, he's going to have a lot more kind of opportunities, I feel, with the other Eze now joining as well. So it's one of those that seems to be working well for him, and I think he will come good in a bit more consistent form. But I think he's doing well for your fantasy football, that's for sure. So that's a positive, right, Rory?
Absolutely. Elsewhere, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2, Villa 0, Bellegarde and Cunha with a lovely goal in the 97th minute. Massive upset there, but a big win for Wolves. Villa continue to struggle post-Champions League matches, but they have signed quite a few attackers today, so I think the numbers should be balanced out. They should have a bit more legs on the bench. Southampton got closer to not being the worst team in Premier League history as they beat Ipswich 2-1. This is a damning result for Ipswich. That, like, if they were ever going to have a chance to stay up, they needed to win that. Horrendous from them. And Newcastle continued their notable, terrible form at home heading into Wednesday as they lost 2-1, going a goal ahead through Murphy, but Jimenez and Muniz coming off the bench to deliver the win for Fulham. Fully deserved for Fulham that win as well, by the way. Like, they were comfortably the better side. And Bournemouth 0, Liverpool 2. We alluded to it earlier, but Salah with 2 goals again. Oh, I'm Mo Salah. I'm really good at football. Shut up. Really boring and pathetic. I'm sick of him. But a comfortable win for Liverpool. And that was the Premier League action this weekend. Guys, we're going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss... Oh, and Chelsea came back from 1-0 down to beat West Ham 2-1. Neto and Wan-Bissaka with an own goal. God, I can't wait to see that goal. But we're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss all things transfer market. Arsenal did bloody nothing. And we are back. It's time to round up the transfer window. It has officially slammed shut. It's the only verb you're allowed to use when it comes to the transfer window. It has slammed shut. And we're going to talk about one piece of business we think is bad business and one thing of business we think is good business. Adam, I'm going to start with you. Your piece of bad business, which one are you expecting to flop like Anthony? There we go.
Yeah, I was kind of deliberating between a few options. One was Ben Godfrey, who has transferred from Atalanta to Ipswich. I don't think that's necessarily a good one. But I'm going to go with Enciso from Brighton to Ipswich. I feel that's a very strange direction from an Ipswich perspective. I don't know if he necessarily fits what Kieran McKenna has been trying to kind of achieve there. And I appreciate where he was going with it, but I just get a vibe that it's just not going to work well. So for me, I'm going with Enciso to Ipswich.
I think that's a fair one because Enciso he captures the headlines, but I think he tries to score from 40 yards every single time he gets the ball. I don't know if he's like a massive team player who, like, every time you see him play, you just like spam shots and you're like, oh, I know what your idea is. Yeah. Two of them will go in, like, and you'll be like, wow, what a guy. But yeah, I don't know if he's that kind of clever signing that you need. Andrea, your bad bit of business.
I'm going to take a bit of a hot take on this one. I generally think Evan Ferguson at West Ham, I don't think it's going to work well.
Boo! Boo!
No, I don't know. I think it was the right thing. It was the right decision that he left, but I don't think West Ham was the right choice, personally. I don't know. I just don't... I don't see how he fits in. I don't know. I don't think he suits them. I don't know. I just think there'd be a bit of a mismatch with it. It's just a gut feeling, but I think... again, right decision to leave, but although it's not a transfer, I have to mention it. Arsenal not signing a striker is abysmal. That's like that's the worst. That's the worst transfer. Like, so can we count not buying someone being the worst transfer?
Can we not talk about it?
No, it's got to be mentioned. Yeah.
No, absolutely. It's insane. I think I don't want to get into it. I think I know why the board have done it. I kind of understand, but from the outside, you're like, what the frick are we doing, guys? If Kai Havertz gets injured in this season where we've had 1 million injuries, we're fucked. Like, he's really rolling the dice on that one, so I'll take it. But Evan Ferguson, I think it's either going to be like the making of his career, or he'll be in the Championship next year. I think there's like no middle ground, and there's a lot of my sanity riding on this transfer in terms of me watching Ireland over the next 10 years. So I'm really quite invested in this one. But Tom, friend of the show, West Ham fan, was talking about it like, I'm glad it's just a loan, but I'm intrigued to see how it goes. Their number 9 curse could kill off original R9. Like, it doesn't matter who they have up front, it never goes well. But
Chelsea runs them close, though.
Sorry?
Chelsea run them close, to be
fair. Run them close. That's true. But yeah, no, I can completely understand why Evan Ferguson might catch the headlines with that one. I'm going to lean into my Arsenal persona, and I'm going to say Danzo to Tottenham. They've tried to sign everyone. They've been rejected by everyone, and they finally found someone who said yes. I think he's a perfectly fine defender, but I think it's nothing more than that. I don't know how well he's going to adapt to having to play on the halfway line and sprint back every 2 minutes. That's going to be interesting to see. And the last time I saw him play against Arsenal, Arsenal put 6 past Lons, and he was pretty disastrous. So I'm not a great first impression of him, and obviously I'm hoping he doesn't do well, but I'm putting that down as one that was kind of a panic buy that they might be stuck with for a while. So yeah, that'll be fun to see. Let's look at the good business. Andrea, I'm going to start with you. Which transfer do you think has been a stroke of genius?
To be honest, I don't know if it's because I didn't think he'd ever leave the club, but I've got to go with Rashford to Aston Villa. Something just screams at me that it's going to work completely well. I think Unai Emery is an unbelievable manager, and I just think he'll get the best out of him. I also think as well that obviously Villa have lost Duran, Watkins is injured. He's probably going to start kind of get straight into it, which might not be the best advised thing for him right now. But at the same time, I just feel like it gives an opportunity to get the weights off his shoulder. And I think, I don't know, just something about it just feels like he's going to have less pressure, a bit more freedom to, express himself, etc. I just think for Villa as well, with the games they have, he's going to get game time. I just think it's going to be a real good move for him. And yeah, he just needed to get out. And I think a team like Villa, where you've got a manager that will definitely look after you and get the best out of you, is the perfect choice to go to. Because there's at the end of the day,
I think him under.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, just because again, for me, even though he hasn't performed, I still think there's a player there. I think he's still top quality on his day. So I think just the right team to get out of him. Still think he can deliver.
No, absolutely. Him under Emery is going to be really interesting to see, and like him and Watkins and Leon Bailey and Asensio and whoever else they've signed this window, a lot of attacking options. I think it'll be really interesting to see how well he does. I'm kind of excited for that one. Honestly, I would like to see Marcus Rashford doing well again. Adam, your genius bit of business this window?
Yeah, I think this is a really clever bit of business from Crystal Palace, but Romanese, who they brought in from Millwall, has vibes of Michael Olise, Eze as well. There's something about him in this season in particular. He's been one of the kind of highlights for this Millwall squad that has propelled them into kind of the playoff mix, so to speak. They're just hovering outside of it. But I think he has all the credentials to push on. And whilst it might not be necessarily for this season, definitely for the forthcoming seasons, I think he's just going to become an even bigger talent in due course. And obviously with Glasner there, he will be guided in terms of how he kind of performs as well. So I think that's such a clever bit of business personally.
Nice. And I'm going to finish with someone coming across from Italian football. He got Italian under-21 Player of the Year, I think, recently. He got an under-21 award. Michael Kayode coming across from Fiorentina to Brentford. Andrea's delighted with this one. He's really, really happy about this deal. He came on against Spurs. Not only did he have a very impressive long throw, but he actually made a really good cameo, made a huge difference, was able to carry the ball. And he's a player that Italian football in general has been excited about for a very long time. I think this is a very clever pickup from Brentford. Yeah. Now, maybe not someone who's going to come in this season and start like destroying teams, but someone over the next few seasons who within a couple of years, people are going to be talking about him and the kind of bigger teams, Brentford are going to be asking for a very big price. So I think this is a very, very clever bit of business from him and a good debut for him at the weekend. So yeah, excited about that deal. That's my stroke of genius, I think. I also wanted to just, kind of Marcus Rashford is a very exciting deal for Aston Villa. But I think that's all the deals really we wanted to talk about. Obviously, Arsenal no striker. That's depressing. Yeah, and that was it really. So guys, anything to say before I send the listener home?
No, enjoy the rest of your week, guys.
I'm sorry, Arsenal
Beautiful.
fans.
What? Oh,
you got no striker.
Andrea, you're going to have to say that again. I talked over you.
I'm just saying, I want to apologise to Arsenal fans but about the striker situation. I brought it up.
It's still very, very sore. All I'm saying is thank God we won yesterday. If we'd have lost yesterday and not signed anyone today, the Emirates would be on fire by now. But listener, thank you for joining us. As always, it means a lot to us that you choose to spend your time with us. So thank you. On all the social media, you can find us at Anglo-Italian Pod, apart from on Twitter, where it's at Italian Anglo Pod. Go and check out TikTok. Andrea and Adam are doing fantastic things over there. If you're on Spotify, give us a follow and a review. If you're on Apple, give us a review and a follow and a rating and all those things. Most importantly, enjoy your week. Go and listen to the Serie A episode, and we will see you next time. See you later.